understanding that all parties concerned were available. It may be that there was some misunderstanding in terms of the availability of all parties, but certainly it was on the understanding that the legal team understood the parties to be available and their lawyers, or at least that is what I understood. And I may have misunderstood something, but otherwise I wouldn't have issued a decision a few days ago and say cross-examination must start in 2 days or 3 days' time. I wouldn't have done that. I would have given everyone enough time. So it was only done on the understanding that there had been communication between the legal team and all the lawyers for the various parties, and my understanding was that they were available. If I had understood differently, I would have arranged that there should be another time. So I thought maybe I must just make that clear, that that's the context in which I said the cross-examination would take place today.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair, before communicating in precise terms
Yes.
my instruction, although
Yes.
Mr. Pretorius has indicated that there is consensus
Yes.
that we will concede the circumstances
Yeah.
that prevail. I'd just like to, I've been instructed and wish to place the following on record, Mr. Chairman. The first is a dissatisfaction on the part of our client, Mr. Wakeford, as to the commitment by Mr. Agrizzi and Mr. Forster to these proceedings and to being willing to be cross-examined and to hear his evidence. You were handed, when we saw you in chambers, the application for a postponement.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to labour the issues, but must place on record that this affidavit that was placed before you ignores the facts in relation to the history of this matter. The facts in relation to the last few days are as you know them.
Yes.
But the affidavit does two things. It misrepresents the facts over the past number of months, in fact, since the 26th of February when our client's application was brought. It strives to then tar our client with the results of today. This affidavit is willfully misleading of you, Mr. Chairman, and this Commission. It's there, but it serves no purpose in me taking it any further. Mr. Agrizzi knows the facts, and this will probably become material in the future in his cross-examination as to his credibility and his reliability. That speaks to the disparity of commitment and the frustration our client has experienced since the 29th of January, when he was implicated by Mr. Agrizzi before this Commission without compliance with the rules of this Commission. That wasn't necessarily directly Mr. Agrizzi's fault, but those were circumstances that prevailed for Mr. Wakeford. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Wakeford has declined all opportunities to respond to the media in good faith and in accordance with your own comments in this Commission. He has had to forego work opportunities, employment opportunities. You would have read in his application that his tenure employment tenure came to an end in April, and he has also had to experience a continual fleshing out of new facts and new information in the affidavits that have come before this Commission. The purpose of these submissions, Mr. Chairman, is in as much as he concedes the circumstances today, and consensually you may order a postponement of the proceedings. He asks that you order the parties to return as soon as at all possible in accordance with the diaries of yourself and the various other stakeholders in in this commission. Mr. Chairman, the discussions that endured in the adjournment between the investigating team and the legal team and the two other legal teams was to the effect that there is some outstanding information which will either suit one or other party or narrow the issues. In those circumstances, and in keeping with his commitment to cooperate, he isn't left with any opportunity but to accord with the advices given and the good faith dealings in particular by the legal team for the Commission and the investigating team. Those are the submissions, save if there's anything else that we can be of assistance with, Mr. Commissioner.
No, that's fine. I'm quite alive to the fact that Mr. Wakeford launched his application many months ago, and that there has been some delay in dealing with it. But I also do know that at a certain time when I thought it could be dealt with, I heard that he was intending to file some further affidavit, so we had to give him that opportunity. But the bottom line is that we want to try and, as far as possible, be fair to everybody. It wouldn't have been fair to everybody to proceed today in the circumstances which prevail. So that's fine. So I will postpone the matter at this stage without fixing a date, but with a clear understanding that everything that needs to be done should be done to make sure that we can fix a date as soon as possible. And what still remains in regard to the leave to cross-examine that has been granted is the question of how much time
Indeed,
will
sir.
be. Yeah, so
I was going to ask after that shortly.
yes, in due course, that will have to be determined. I'm quite happy. If the legal team and your side, and I don't mind everybody, if they've got some submissions to make with regard to how much time should be set aside to make submissions, and obviously at some stage I will decide. As of today, I intended that I would determine that at the beginning of the cross-examination, if the cross-examination was going to proceed. But there is room for various submissions to be made, maybe written submissions ahead of the actual commencement of the hearing. So maybe I can leave that part to be agreed upon among all the legal teams in terms of who might want to submit, deliver written submissions, short written submissions on that, by when, and take from there. But should no submissions or no decision be made ahead of the first day of the cross-examination, I would then make the decision at the commencement of the hearing. But it might be preferable if it's done earlier than that, because then everyone has an idea of how much time is allocated, and therefore what are the important issues to focus on within the time allocated. But I think I can leave that to the various legal teams to agree upon, and then that can be brought to my attention in due course.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's
Yes.
a salient suggestion. We will take advantage of it and hopefully agree that and have that, the submissions referred to you. If we can't agree on it, and you can decide ahead of time.
Yes.
It would be very helpful if for us to know ahead of time
Yes.
what to expect.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, one last comment. Per instructions of our client is to thank you for the alacrity with which you dealt with his application once it was placed before you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Chair.
I don't know if counsel for Mr. Agrizzi and Mr. Foster wishes to say anything.
If it pleases the Honourable Chairperson, there are just certain matters that I just have been instructed to just record
Yes.
at your discretion. I have taken cognizance of Advocate Willis's comments regarding the affidavit that was submitted, and in order to comply with the substantive application requirement before this commission, I will pass those comments on to Mr. Witts, and they can be dealt with by him accordingly.
Yes.
Just as far as Mr. Agrizzi is concerned, and I have appreciation for the fact that Mr. Wakeford, is to a certain extent has placed before your honourable self the fact that he is severely prejudiced. I do believe that that ought to be balanced by the fact that Mr. Agrizzi has not sought an indulgence of this kind before this commission at any point in time since he has been part of these proceedings. He has been present at every single instance that he has been required to do so. The nature of these proceedings is that prejudice will be suffered by implication. These proceedings are laying a scalpel into the bare essentials that undermine our democracy. If that was not true, the President would not have ordered it, and your honourable self would not have been presiding in this matter for the time that you have been. My bottom line is that the rules of natural justice in respect of providing Mr. Agrizzi and every party here an opportunity to deal with these matters properly and appropriately so that everything can be laid bare and there is a complete understanding of the nature of whatever went on is important. As far as the times, just for the for the information of the various parties, I have been advised that times have been suggested and they are similarly contained. Periods of either the 18th, the week of the 18th to the 21st of November, or the 2nd to the 6th of December. Those might be dates that can be kept in mind. My further instruction is that, depending, of course, on your honourable, the Honourable Commissioner's discretion and direction, that Mr. Agrizzi's team would need at least 3 days in order to cross-examine Mr. Wakeford. And as for the remainder, I believe that that has been dealt with by either Mr. Willis or the other members of this commission.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Thank you, sir.
You must those advising Mr. Agrizzi must just remember to have a look at the rules and see whether there are any procedural steps that must be
I will
taken care
advise
of
them
first.
accordingly.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
I must just say, for what it's worth, as different sides contemplate making submissions with regard to the time that can be allowed, that I should consider allowing for cross-examination. They should take into account that I'm inclined not to allow too much time, but at the same time, I don't want to be unfair and therefore to parties and allow too little time. So,
Honourable Chairman, I think
you will bear that in mind.
I think we all agree that we serve at your discretion and at your
Yes.
pleasure in this instance, and we take your
Yes.
direction accordingly.
Yes, I think the first time when I determined allocated time for cross-examination was with regard to, I think, the cross-examination of Mr. Jonas. I don't know whether also Ms. Mentor. I think at that time I may have granted an hour or two or thereabout, Yesterday, not yesterday. Yeah, I think in the past it was about an hour or two, but obviously it depends on the issues and how fast they are. But I just want everybody to take that into account.
I take that into consideration. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Pretorius.
Thank you, Chair. Just 3 points. Firstly, the legal team appreciates the cooperation of the parties. It is obviously best for the investigative work of the Commission that evidence and cross-examination takes place on as thorough an investigation into the underlying facts as possible. The second point is that to place the history of this matter in its proper context, it was concluded by the filing of a reply on behalf of Mr. Wakeford of some 290 pages on the 1st of October, in other words, very recently. So in assessing the delay, that must be taken into account. And thirdly, it's important to put one matter straight and on the record, Chair. It has been said today and in public and in correspondence many times that Mr. Agrizzi implicated witnesses without compliance with the rules. That is not correct. There was if regard is had to the record, which is available for all to read, the evidence of Mr. Agrizzi was given after a comprehensive and proper application in terms of the rules that he do so without the issue of 3-3 notices in particular circumstances that were placed in evidence before you, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
So in other words, you just remind everybody that to the extent that there might not have been any Rule 3-3 notices that were issued, it was under circumstances that the legal team submitted justified doing that, and that was placed before the Commission.
Yes. And you permitted it, Chair, in terms of the rules.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to postpone the cross-examination of Mr. Agrizzi and Mr. Foster by counsel for Mr. Wakeford. I'm not going to fix any date because that must still be worked out. But attempts will be made to fix a date as soon as possible. And I've no doubt that the investigation that must be carried out in order to facilitate that cross-examination is going to be done as soon as possible. So the cross-examination of Mr. Agrizzi and Mr. Foster is postponed sine die, and another date will be determined in due course. That puts us at the end of the proceedings of today. We, Mr. Pretorius, are not having any witnesses tomorrow and Friday. Is that confirmed?
Friday is still relatively uncertain. I say relatively uncertain. The witness for that day will probably not appear, but there is a chance that it can still be arranged and notification can be given to today.
So somebody must just let me know, but certainly not tomorrow. There's no witness tomorrow.
Correct.
And with regard to there will be no hearing on Monday and Tuesday next week as well.
Correct.
There will be a hearing on Wednesday involving a witness from the Free State government in relation to Estina. So the public will be advised about Friday either sometime this today or tomorrow.
Thank
We
you, Chair.
adjourn. We adjourn.